A lot of people are getting the names confused, or they're mixing and matching these names. Sometimes you hear it called ISIS, sometimes you hear it called ISIL. ISIS stands for the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. ISIL stands for the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. Levant is in the territory over there, and I'll put up a map here for you. That consists of Israel, Lebanon, and Syria. They had to throw the I in there for Iraq because that wasn't part of the Levant, the Levant territory. But you're going to hear these acronyms switch back and forth, and it's the same group. They're not two different groups, it's the same group. People are just playing around with the name a little bit. The significance of ISIL and the Levant is the fact that Israel is part of what was the Levant territory. So they actually are putting Israel on their target map, which is a whole other issue when you start involving the Israelis. Here's kind of the map here. This is territory that they've taken. Territory that's disputed. This is subject to change on and off. They're based out of a city called Raqqa in Syria, which is right about here. You got Lebanon and Israel. This right here would be Levant. And then they can claim as Levant any border country on the Mediterranean. First designation of Levant was it was in the 15th century. The Levant did not include Iraq, which we talked about. That's what the I is for in ISIL and ISIS. But it did include Syria. However, the changing name from Syria to the Levant is declaring part of the goal of destruction and takeover of Israel, which we talked about, and the Lebanese. Lebanon is Shia, mostly Shia. We're dealing with Sunnis here. And we'll talk about this here later. Again, once you get Israel involved, we got a whole other ballgame. If you were to take every Mediterranean, Middle Eastern country, and they'll claim Egypt, and not so much Libya over there in North Africa, but that's kind of what your map would look like. Some of the more salient aspects of ISIS are it's significant in perpetrating corporate structure, something that Al-Qaeda never really had, which is kind of bin Laden and his lieutenants. Its overall size, they're actually taking over 2 different countries, and the territory that they've taken over is actually larger than some countries in the world. Its command and military structure, which they got most recently because Sunni elements of the Iraqi army that have taken their side due to their treatment by the Shia Maliki government. They've taken the side of ISIS. They brought that military experience with them in that structure. Weapons, captured weapons from Syria and Iraq, also flowing into them through other resources. And the ability to self-fund. And the ability to self-fund to a degree far greater than prior Islamic groups, including Al-Qaeda, was basically living off sheiks and Sunni sheiks and such that would, under the rug, finance these guys. When you look at the structure here and you see something completely, even though they're not Al-Qaeda affiliate, from a U.S. military standpoint, they're doing exactly what, from a military strategy, that we're very good at. They're operating in large groups and vehicles, and heavy armor and stuff like that, which we're very good at taking out. We're just not going to do it simply from the air. But from a military standpoint, or as opposed to with Al-Qaeda groups and other terrorist groups, where they're operating in small cells in large cities, where we have to try to pinpoint them through telephones and intelligence and what have you, these guys are out in the open and traveling down roads and streets, and that's what we do well. We kick people's asses that way. Again, it's not simply going to be done from the air. And our military knows that, and our government knows that too. The fact that it's taken over a significant land area, call it a nation-state size, actually removes it from the distinct definition of a terrorist group to, and we're transferring from one thing to another, into a terror-oriented nation. This is important for several reasons. In the modern era of terrorism, which basically began in 1968, terrorism by definition involves actions committed for designated reasons by non-state actors, people operating in groups, but not necessarily by a government. The best example of a terrorist state I could give right now is probably Iran. Therefore, a nation that commits acts that might be considered terroristic is not a terror group. It's subject to sanctions and prosecution in international court as a nation for acts of war, genocide, and etc. And its leaders are submitted to criminal prosecution, like we see with Milosevic in Serbia in the mid-90s, late 90s. But to get to that point with ISIS, it would first have to be formally and officially recognized as an actual nation, which we're not going to do. We're not going to recognize these guys as the country of ISIS or ISIL. It kind of leaves us in that little ipso facto gray area of how we're going to go after these guys through rules of war. Are they terrorists? Can we go after them differently than we do a nation? So it kind of leaves us out there with trying to decide how we're going to react to these guys from a military standpoint and a political standpoint. How did these guys start? These guys are the remnants of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. This was Abu al-Zarqawi's group. And he was a rogue member of Al-Qaeda that started the Al-Qaeda in Iraq. He was killing so many Muslims in the Iraq war that Zawahiri and bin Laden told him to stop it, and he said, I'm not stopping it. He was kind of the rogue element. Our U.S. Special Forces and U.S. Air Force killed him in 2006. Our Special Forces guys found out where he was. We lasered a building, and an F-16 came over and dropped a big bad bomb on him and killed him. Then we had the surge in the Anbar province in Iraq. And we got the Sunni religious and political leaders on our side. They actually came to our side. And they basically ran these guys out. They retreated to Syria. The Syrian civil war started. And that offered them sanctuary. During the sanctuary time, in the 2007 to 2010 time, they recruited, they armed, they trained, and they got their funding to the point now where they're invading Iraq again. And that's kind of where we stand with these guys. All the Sunni elements that we had, that we went over during the surge in Anbar, which is in western Iraq, there should be a map up here, hopefully. We lost, and they went right back, simply because the Shia-operated government, minority government of Malaki, or Malaki, however we pronounce his name, just treated them so poorly, and gave them absolutely nothing in the way they operated over there as a government. We lost all that support we had. When the U.S. troops pulled out, he basically went in there and did what he wanted, mistreated all these people, and they traded sides, and they went back to ISIS when they came over the border. ISIS's reach and presence is transnational. We're operating in 2 different countries right now, which is, again, a political problem for us. We'll bomb them in Syria, but we're not going to send any advisors into Syria like we have in Iraq. I think the president just announced 1,500 more guys going over there this week. There's already 1,500 over there. The original or foundational, their foundation is Al-Qaeda at its base. But Al-Qaeda was forced to work in sleeper cells, not as an army. These guys are operating as an army. And they're very arrogant in the way they do things. They don't care who knows it. They film their atrocities and take pictures and everything, which we'll get into here in a minute. And this is new to us. We're not real sure how to deal with these guys from a political standpoint. The military knows what to do if they're given the reins to do it. But from a political standpoint, this is new to us. We're not real sure what to do. We see it in other countries like Serbia and stuff like that. But operating in the Middle East is completely different than Eastern Europe as far as the politics go. So we're kind of learning as we go. Another significant difference with ISIS is that, unlike the original Al-Qaeda as a progenitor of Islamic and jihadist groups, it's not depending largely or solely on a single leader. They don't have a king like they had with bin Laden. They have Baghdadi or al-Baghdadi. Again, this week, the reports are coming out that we injured him in a bombing raid. But if we happen to kill him, they don't operate under that single leadership like Al-Qaeda did. As a long-term corporate structure, which means it has a deep bench to go to for leaders. Somebody else is going to step up. It's kind of like drug dealers that we deal in law enforcement. You take one out, another one's going to take his place. For several reasons, for power, for advancement of the cause, and for money. These guys are getting just as rich as they are terroristic. Final distinction for ISIS is a cyber recruitment and communication campaign. We've already seen just a few young people in America who've been radicalized to support and join them. That'll be important later. No one talks about all the young people from other parts of the world who have fallen under their sway due to their internet presence, and they're using this stuff brilliantly. They're like jihadist rock stars, if you will. And they trump on that heavily. This will continue to grow. In 2001, there were merely a dozen hardcore jihadist websites on the internet. By 2004, there were 2,400, and now some sources have claimed that it's getting doubled to almost 5,000. Yet ISIS sites have taken it to a whole new level. They know how to play the internet game and are doing so remarkably successful. And I'll show you a picture here later of one of the recruiting posters. It's brilliant. And this will get worse as well. Girl doesn't look quite as happy as he does. ISIS objectives. This is not a war on the United States. This isn't a war on Western living. Right now, at this Tier 1, first stage, and most important stage of them right now, this is a Sunni-Shia war. This is a war between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula, which is mostly Sunni. Iraq's majority ruling party right now is Shia. The U.S. pulled out, when we pulled out in 2011, the corruption and increased influence of the Iranians just sent that country down the tubes and set up a perfect theater for this to happen. They embarked in 1919 after World War I. The Brits got what is now currently Iraq, the British, and they divided it, the country, and they just drew lines on a map, and they came up the country of Iraq. And they had all these different ethnic groups and religious groups centered around this one little area in this country, what became Iraq. Anbar is mostly Sunni, which is Western Iraq. Southern Iraq is mostly Shia, and Northern are Kurdish. These groups do not play well together, being so close to each other. Again, Sunnis are backed by the Arab Peninsula, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Yemen, and the Shia are backed by the Iranians. The Wahhabis or Salafist Sunni Arabs are focused on the destruction of all Shia and other non-Islamic minorities in the Mesopotamia and the Levant. That's our main purpose right now. They really don't care about us or what we're doing right now. This is their main thing. Now, if they can happen to kill some of us or encourage others to do so, which we'll get into, they're perfectly fine with that. But this war right now, the shooting war over there right now, this purpose is the destruction of all the Shia in that area of the world. They do not necessarily swear loyalty to al-Zawahiri, which is #1 with Al-Qaeda right now since we killed bin Laden, somewhere in Pakistan, we think, but they are Al-Qaeda. They receive funding from benefactors from the Gulf states. By Gulf states, I mean the Arab Peninsula. And are very wealthy oil sheiks and such that are doing what they can. Again, this is a religious war. We don't understand that as Westerns. We don't understand that. We had our Inquisition 700 years ago, and they're having theirs now. If you look at it, Islam basically started in the 7th century. So they're 700 years behind us, and they're going through their Inquisition right now. It just happens to be in a modern world where our Inquisition was in the Middle Ages, and we didn't have that global influence, or the Christians didn't have that global influence. Now we have the global influence in planes, trains, automobiles, and internet, and that's how they're touching us right now. If they didn't have that, this war would still be going on with bows and arrows. It's just they're going through their inquisition right now. ISIS breakdown, main supporters, although most of them will deny it to your face. Turkey, Qatar, we're losing Turkey right now, and they're probably going to be kicked out of NATO. The only reason why we're kicking them out, haven't kicked them out yet, is Russia, because Russia problems are starting up. We want that border on Russia. That's why we let Turkey in the first place during the Cold War, because they have a border with Russia. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates are their main supporters. They receive funding through the same benefactors in the Gulf states, which are Sunni Arabs and very wealthy oil sheiks and such that are doing the thing. And this is all for that Iranian influence and that Sunni or that Shia influence. This is their holy war, and it's not going to stop. They're not going to have peace talks and such, and treaties and stuff like that. That's not going to happen. That's not how this religion works, or not how that part of the history of their religion is right now. Again, we talked about they absorb Sunni remnants of the Iraqi army, giving them the ability to rapidly employ, and you can add remnants, and you can add equipment to that also. And you can watch some of the news footage. You can see our own Humvees that we left back there for the Iraqis that these guys are driving around. No one except the Kurds, who are a warrior people, man. They are a warrior class of people. They are fighters. Have the courage to stand up to them, and that's why you see stalemates in northern Syria right now. The Kurds are fighting their asses off right now. And we're lucky to have them on our side. And if they fall, we're in trouble. Again, the primary focus is to kill all Sharia and gain primary control of the Mesopotamia and Levant. Mesopotamia is going down there south where the Euphrates River comes out to the Gulf of southern Iraq. And again, at this point, their goal, as their tier 1 goal, is not to attack the United States. They're ignoring us right now. They don't care. And they'll provoke us, but they're ignoring us right now. We come later. Besides the Sunni sheikhs and countries and governments that are under the table financing them, they're seizing oil platforms and selling the oil at rock bottom prices. I don't know if that has anything to do with our low gas prices now, but they're flooding the market as much as they can with very low oil sales on the black market. Theft from conquered areas, they're robbing banks, stealing gold, valuables, and anything else inside the bank. And then on independent areas where you might have one commander operating a certain area, you might see kidnapping for ransom. That won't be any Westerners. They're not going to kidnap this particular group. Now some other groups like Nusra and other operating in Syria will do some kidnapping for ransoms, but these guys aren't. Most of the ransoms are going to be from Arab countries. That's a picture. It's a recruitment poster. I was telling you about how they use the internet. Those are ISIS members. And if you see some of their, in the pictures, watch some of their clothing. I mean, they're wearing Under Armour and 511 gear and stuff like that. I mean, they are the rock stars of the jihadis right now. But this is right out of the book, recruitment poster that they've got up on the internet.
Call of Duty's a popular game, isn't it? For all that age group that...
As they're making fun of us, you're playing a game and we're doing the real thing. So if they're not really a tier 1 level fighting the United States right now, if that's their main goal, why are we fighting this? And we're going to get a little graphic here. It's a U.S. Special Operations Forces. It's a Delta unit. Which a buddy of mine was from. He sent me that picture. Catching, this is actually in Afghanistan, but why should we get in this? There's our first American hostages executed. We actually tried to save these hostages July 4th, 2014. We sent a Delta operation into Raqqa, Syria, to a building that we thought our hostages were in. So this guy, the Brits, the American from Indianapolis now, that's supposedly next on the list, however, they're off their timeline if they were going to kill him. Rumors on the street is he converted, so they're kind of delaying his execution. I don't know if that's true or not. Not that it matters. But we actually sent in a Delta element into Roca, Syria. It was a flawless operation. We hit this building, we hit it hard, we hit it fast, we killed a lot of Hajis, and we got out clean. The problem was the hostages weren't there. A month later, we started cutting off heads. That was July 4th. I think Foley was killed the first week of August. The executioner is believed to be a British rap artist. That's his picture on the right. I can't remember his name. It's Foley after the execution. Brutality, genocide, and executions. If you can think of no more noble reason to get in a fight, this is the reason to get into it. Some things go beyond politics. It's an Iraqi soldier on the left and a Syrian Christian on the right. And he's simply being executed because he's a Christian. This is racism at its most extreme. They get so specific in their hatred that they view a Catholic the same way a Sunni will view a Catholic the same way, and they'll view a Shia the same way. Any form not exactly the way their version of Islam is considered blasphemous and punishable by death. Period. There's no sidetracking, there's no negotiation, there's no treaties. This is what it is. You call it an intervention, humanitarian reasons if you want, whatever you want to call it is what it is. This is brutality in its most pure form. They want us dead in the name of Allah. Again, there's no talking about it. There's no sitting down like Israel and Egypt did in 76 or whatever with Carter, made up the Middle East peace between Israel and Egypt. That element does not exist with these guys. They will not stop. We must accept and deal with this. They see all other forms of Islam as blasphemous and punishable by death. And they get into that Shia law. They're still fighting the Crusades, something that we hardly even teach in history class anymore. To them, this is just an extension of the Crusades we were fighting in 1200 BC. There's no difference between those Crusaders back then and what they're doing now. This is the Crusades for them. And we don't even teach this in history classes too much anymore. I don't remember getting a whole lot of it. They want to return civilization to the 7th century, the days of Muhammad. Muhammad died in 632 AD. So a lot of questions whether the narco cartels, the Juarez, Sinaloa, these large organized cartel groups will assist these guys in coming across the border and attacking the United States. One group says that's an absolute going to happen, if not how or not when, where, or it's going to happen sometime. Other people will say it doesn't really make any sense for these cartels to assist these terror groups in attacking the United States. $30 billion a year goes across the border from the United States to Mexico in drug money. 9/11 was one of the worst things that ever happened to the cartels because it took away, we tightened our borders, it took away body packing at airports where they would transport drugs and money back and forth from city to city, place to place, and eventually across the border through body packing. The drug cartels want us happy and stoned. They don't want us all uptight and pissed off, if you will. So there's two different forms. As far as these organizations paying the cartels to allow them to take large groups of mini armies, if you will, across the southern border, at this point, with $30 billion a year going across the border, these drug cartels can buy and sell these terror groups. Everybody's talking about Bin Laden at his most had about $20 million to $40 million. $30 billion a year going across that border. Bin Laden didn't have any money these cartels wanted. They could buy and sell Bin Laden. Groups that may assist these guys that are coming over the border, maybe in smaller cells to attack organized groups of airports and groups of 2 or 3 or what have you across the country. Could be 1 or 2 types of groups. One, there's still a Mexican nationalist element down there who feel we stole part of their country in 1824 or what have you, and they want it back. And then another groups would be the smaller groups that just do anything for money. The coyotes and stuff like that, which is a realistic element to what we have to be aware of. And so it's more likely these smaller, unorganized, ragtag groups will cooperate with these terror elements much more than these large cartels. These cartels don't want our border shut down. The cartels aren't going to, it's not advantageous for them to bring a large group of terrorists over, attack Phoenix, LA, San Francisco, Philadelphia, whatever. Our intelligence goes back and says to the cartels, they don't want us down there. They want us relaxed and stoned. Whether they do it or not, I'm not going to take a side. My guess would be the smaller ragtag groups that just do anything for money. Coyotes that charge $5,000 a head to take across the border. They don't care what you do once you get here. Other crimes that go along with terrorism, we talk about kidnapping, extortion, armed sales, and human trafficking. Hundreds and hundreds of girls from the Yazidis, they attacked the Christians that finally got us into the bombing these guys for no other reason, just for the looks of it. Hundreds and hundreds of them were sold off as wives to Islamic extremists within the ISIL group. The boys in Nigeria also is a perfect example. They stole the Boko Haram guys who kidnapped those 300 girls. Perfect example of terrorism and human trafficking falling hand in hand. What's this mean for American law enforcement? And how are we going to deal with these guys? Our problem is while they're not attacking us directly, they got their own, again, Tier 1 operations that they're doing over there right now, which we talked about. They are through the internet and other social networks, encouraging lone wolf. Hey, if you are on our side while you're over there in New York City, attack cops with hatchets, which we see. We saw what's happening in Canada. It's working. These guys are doing it. And that's pretty much what they're encouraging right now. While they're dealing with the Shia over there, they're encouraging their supporters here, the radicalized people over here that they're trying to do over the internet and through other social media networks, to go have your own little jihad against the Americans. And that's pretty much where we stand with them right now, which is probably a Tier 2 thing. They're great if they do it, and they'll be happy about it. But again, right now they're dealing with Muslim on Muslim, Iran versus the Gulf Peninsula countries. It wouldn't be surprising if they would send activated cells. They would eventually like to provoke us into a war. That's a great recruiting network for them. They're operating around 30 to 50,000 right now. If we put boots on the ground to them, that might be a greater recruiting thing for them. And that's something we got to deal with. Someday, we're going to have to step up and say, we're going to take these boys out, or we're going to deal with it over years and years and years and bomb this building and take out this group with this SF unit or what have you. Again, as they go into cell activity or cell operations, whether they bring them over the border or try to radicalize others and talk them into doing it, our soft targets are probably going to be what's hit because it's what they know, it's what they're good at. School, malls, religious buildings. As far as sieges go, schools are great, religious buildings are okay, malls are not that great. Outdoor markets and transportation hubs are usually best for bombings, whether it's suicide or a planted bomb. That's why you see most of your transportation, most of the transportation industry simply bombs. Or they're going in and shooting a bunch of people like they did in Mumbai, and then just running and shooting as many people as they can before they get killed or captured. It's not a seize thing. Seizes, they like schools. Is it crime when these people do commit these things? Are they crime bound by the U.S. Constitution and the rights they have, or is it terrorism? It matters because it matters on how we're going to deal with them. and what we're going to do with them, and how we're going to attack them as far as making them in progress of whatever they're doing, take them out, and who's going to do it, and then the legal stuff afterwards. Again, this might seem like a silly question, but you got a lot of stupid people out there. And just the photos I've shown you, and then you got this jerk wearing this shirt. If you really understood what was going on, what these guys are doing, you'd strip that thing off and burn it. This Sunni-Shia war that they've been fighting for years, that's coming to a head in that part of the world right now. There's some very moderate differences on how the way they see things. And to us, they're like, what's the big deal? To them, it's the biggest deal in the world. And that's just how that religion operates, as far as these extremists go. Muhammad died in 632 AD. The Sunnis believe Islamic leaders do not have to be blood relatives of Muhammad. And that was the following of Abu Bakr, who was a friend of Muhammad and a religious counterpart. The Sunni believe the Prophet Muhammad and the Quran are the ultimate interpretation of Islam, along with the Quran, and there's nobody can interpret what the Quran says. This is what the Quran says. There's no veering either way. Nobody else can say this is right, that is right. The Shia believe that Islamic leaders should be blood relatives of Muhammad. Back when Muhammad died, their followers of this ideation came from a gentleman named Ali. He was the cousin of Muhammad. And the Shia believe that the Ayatollahs interpret the Quran for the rest of the people. There's subtle differences on how the way they see the religion, but to them it's very, very important, to the point of what we have all this drama going on now. Ali's son Hussein was killed in battle with the Sunni in 680 AD in Karbala, what is now Iraq. If you've seen the footage of on the news where you have guys without their shirts on marching and hit their backs with the blades, that's in commemoration to Hussein, who was killed in battle, and that's a religious holiday for them, and that's why they do that, because Ali was basically just chopped up into little pieces after the battle by the Sunni, and that's the way they acknowledge that, or acknowledge him. And you see where guys will just butcher themselves walking down the street in a parade-like fashion. There's 1.6 billion Muslims in the world, 80% are Sunni. Sharia law, which these guys adhere to. Sharia means the right path. It's a religious legal code. It regulates family and criminal law. Now, to these extremists, family law is much more important than criminal law. Adultery is much more serious than murder in this type of law. This is called Had for the family law. Again, Had are offenses that are fixed and specific punishments according to Muhammad and the Quran. These are basically laws and punishments that are specific to the Quran. The Quran does not specify a punishment for murder. It does for adultery, and it's death. These are the 5 Had laws: unlawful sex outside outside marriage or adultery, false accusation of unlawful sex, wine, which would now be alcohol drinking, theft, and highway robbery, which seemed like a really weird mix of Had laws. The reason why highway robbery is back then, in Muhammad's days, the primary economic foothold for that area of the world was trade. And it was like stealing a horse in the Wild West in the 1880s. Somebody could die because you're taking away their ways of life, or how they survive. Females, the entire body is a sex organ and must be covered. Must be escorted by a male relative when they're in public. Their testimony only counts as half of a male's testimony in court, and they're only allowed to testify in property crimes. If a woman accuses a male of rape, she must have 4 male witnesses, or she'll be accused of going back up here to unlawful sex. And that's punishable by death. Wahhabism is the driving force behind these laws. Back in 1100 AD, you had 2 very strong families in the Saudi Arabian Peninsula. They were drastic enemies, but they didn't quite get along. Well, finally they got together and said, why don't we do this? You become the government for economics. The House of Saud, the House of Wahib are going to become the religious police. So they got together. Now you have a family, the Saud family. What country they have? Saudi Arabia. Wahib, that extremist religious version of Sunniism, it's called Wahhabism. Can you kind of see how those things years ago are affecting us now? Both Shia and Sunni have enacted extreme forms of Sharia law. So the Shia aren't innocent in this also. Iran does some incredibly harsh punishments for the same laws that these Sunnis do. You see women hanging from cranes, and they don't hang them, they don't drop them. They don't put them on scaffolds, put the rope around their neck, and then drop it and break their neck. They simply tie them to a crane. You'll see cranes all over Tehran. It's yard crane. You put the rope around the neck, raise them up, and then just let them lay there until they choke to death. It's not a neck-breaking form of hanging, it's a strangulation form of hanging. That's it.
So if Iran ever gets involved in this, what would that do? I mean,
you're gonna have a great big war, and we'll have to get involved probably. And you saw where some congressional leaders are throwing a fit now because Obama wrote a secret note to the leaders of Iran telling them to get involved in this, and there's elements of our Congress who don't want anything to do with Iran, and they see them just as bad as ISIS, and that can be argued all over the place, for or against. Obama doesn't want to get involved, and he doesn't care who fixes this, even if it's Iranian. Period. I don't know, that's not a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not making a judgment.
No, I know.
It's just Obama does not want involved in this, and he doesn't care who fixes it.
You've indicated the first tier is over there, and perhaps a second tier of some of these sporadic sort of
Right.
non-active.
I don't think we're going to see an ISIS army invade us from Mexico.
At this time. My understanding, however, is that they're talking about a caliphate that wants to rule the whole world.
Oh yeah, they're thinking 1,000 years back from the Crusades, and they're thinking 1,000 years ahead. This is simply like, to put it in context, the Normandy invasion. That was simply one battle of a much larger war. We like our wars nice and short, a year, maybe 2, then we start getting tired of them. They think in periods of hundreds and thousands of years, up to 1,000 years. This is just one tiny battle of a much greater war to impose their form of Islam on the entire world. So yeah, this is one tiny speck. All the drama that's going over there now, causing all this upheaval, to them is just one tiny speck of a war that's going to continue until they get their worldwide caliphate of Islamic. We're on the list, just their attention right now is right there. But yeah, they have their way. 100, 200, 500, they don't really care on the timeline. The entire world is going to be their form of Wahhabism, Sunni Wahhabism.
You also indicated that because Israel is in that area. What happens if they attack?
I don't know, it's for a greater mind than mine. It goes some CIA and some Pentagon guys for that. I don't know I mean, the Israelis aren't gonna be punked by these guys. They touch one nick of sand of Israeli soil, they're gonna be in it.
They put up a fight.
Yeah, and they're
They,
good.
they can handle
They're
themselves.
good.
What's the definition of Islamic State? You hear them say Islamic State. Is that that they've taken over territory and they are operating it?
They're operating it, they've conquered it, and they're imposing their Sharia law.
And where are those right now? Is there any true Islamic states right now that are under their complete control?
No, well, you got,
You have pockets of.
they own this to this right now. Baghdad's right about here. Raqqa is here. Israel's here, Lebanon's here. Right now, what they own is right here.
And that is operating as an Islamic state. They're that close to Israel.
Well, I mean, they don't have any representatives in the UN or anything, but they own from here to here. The Kurds are operating up here. And the Kurds are fighting them all along this front, including Syria.
But there are Islamic states in the world, like Yemen.
Iran's in this Islamic state. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And they're right here. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, UAE, Oman, Yemen.
Do they abide by Sharia? Are they run by Sharia?
No, Kuwaitis are probably the mellowest Islamics you'll ever meet as far as the country goes. They're into oil, not religion. I mean, they're still religious, but
And
kind of more than we are Catholic.
kind of like how the U.S. is not a Christian country in the sense
Right.
that the law is not the Ten Commandments, don't lie, or don't dishonor your parents, or you're going to get stoned, et cetera, et cetera.
Literally. Now you have individuals that will adhere to, you know, Abu al-Kuwaiti, which basically means Abu from Kuwait, which was his war name, was Bin Laden's courier that we followed back in the war. He was Kuwaiti. If you watch Zero Dark 30, you know, they do a pretty good job of showing how we tracked them for, you know, for as far as the movie version goes. You'll have individuals from all these countries that will come and fight for the religion. That's the problem we have, is they're not dedicated to a country, they're dedicated to the religion. That's how we're having so much problem. They're not, you know, an American extremist who fell under these guys' spell doesn't consider himself an American. He considers himself a Wahhabi or what have you. That's the problem that we're having. These countries really don't matter right here.
And part of that, the fact that the borders were just randomly drawn after the First World War by the British, who
Yeah,
belonged 700 miles away.
We talked about that. This is the Anbar province here, Sunni Kurdistan, for lack of a better phrase, of what they call it. And then this is the Shia territory. And when the Brits came in, they just cut out a country and said, "You're going to be a country now." And it's like having Black Panthers and white supremacists saying you're a country together now. It's not working. There's something to be said for harsh dictators in Arabic countries. They kept it a country even through brutal ways. Saddam Hussein, perfect example. Egypt, perfect example. Libya. See, I mean, Gaddafi was an SOB, and he treated his people like crap, and he messed with us and brought down one of our airliners in '86. And when he was overflown, it's just chaos now. Brutal dictators in Arab countries seem to keep the peace, for lack of a better phrase.
I haven't been following it much, but is there talk in terms of the strategy of dealing with this, is just letting each nationality and
I don't think
be their
I don't think we
own
know what to do.
be their own thing?
I don't
Supposed
think
to
they know
try
how
and
to
enforce
do
it.
it. I mean, I'm sure in some dark room somewhere in Washington DC, they talked about making Iraq 3 different countries. I don't know if that'll solve anything, they'll just invade each other because they hate each other so much.
But then at least,
Again, these guys are extremists for a reason, and they're not gonna go to a treaty table, they're not gonna go to sign peace papers in Paris or what have you. They're in it to win it, and if you're not opposing them, not in it to win it, they're gonna keep this up.